I can't believe that we have to do this again, but here we are. For those of you that don't know, we just released an episode that covered a whole bunch of systems that Soulja Boy was selling. These ones right here. In that episode, we told you everything that was bad about those consoles, and folks, there was a lot of bad. And while one of them was an interesting console, the Fuse system, the problem was that, well, if you lived outside of China, chances are you probably couldn't actually get the system to work very well. So that's how we left it. He was selling these systems, and we thought they were a bad idea. But things happened, folks. He actually got rid of all of those systems online. So now you can't even buy them even if you wanted to. Well, I mean, you still can. You can go to where he was buying them, where he was reselling them, and buy them yourselves, but again, we still don't recommend it. But things have changed. After he pulled down all of those items, we just assumed he wasn't going to put any more consoles up. But then, he did. Soulja Boy made an announcement that he was going to be selling a brand new system, and this one looks like, well, it looks like a PlayStation Vita. But it isn't a PlayStation Vita, it's a knockoff of one. Now, here's the thing though, while in the past all the other systems were bundled with games, this one doesn't have to be. If Soulja Boy did his work properly, he could actually buy a system that doesn't have all the games pre-installed into the hardware. And if that's the case, all you're getting here is a glorified media player. But why you would need something like that in the day and age of the modern smartphone is completely beyond me, but you can buy whatever you want to buy as long as it's not something that's illegal. And while it probably does have certain emulators included on the system, the likelihood of there actually being games on there is a little bit minimal. Possible, but probably minimal. However, that's not the systems we're going to be talking about, because see, Soulja Boy didn't just leave it off at that, he introduced even more systems. And the first one that we're going to be talking about looks like a DVD player, but it's not. This is called the Souljagame Portable Screen. And I know what you're thinking, why is he calling this a video game console? Well, that's because it secretly is one. When you buy the system, it comes with a disc, and on that disc are 300 NES and Famicom games and a really bad controller. And that means you can play whatever games are on there. Now in the past, we didn't have a list of games to look at because on all the descriptions for all the consoles, he didn't list them in the description, which was a smart move. But on this one, he clearly did notice that the last image he used on here shows the list of games. That's right, 1942, Contra, you don't own those games and you don't have the licenses for them, I guarantee it. So, that's a problem. But you could actually sell this thing without the disc if you really wanted to. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Maybe, just maybe, you were selling these systems and you got some weird image that had that little disc on there and you didn't realize there was a bunch of games on them. I'll give you that. But the next system we're going to talk about and the central focus of this video is something that clearly he shouldn't be selling at all. On Soulja Boy's website right now, you can buy the Souljagame Handheld. Unfortunately though, it's not the same Souljagame Handheld he was selling in the past because now it's the PVP 3000 game console. The specific model of this system is kind of irrelevant because what actually matters is what's inside of it. You see, the exterior shell changes from manufacturer to manufacturer, and the one that we have is called the PXP3 Slim Station. But I assure you, what's on the inside and all the games are relatively the same. The box that this console comes in is amazing. Just look at it. It actually sparkles when you move it around in light. And if that isn't distracting enough, how about all the characters they stole and stuck on the box art? Spider-Man, Sonic the Hedgehog, virtually every character from Super Mario Bros., Crash Bandicoot, Goku, Mega Man, Superman, Shaun the Sheep, and some random soccer player that doesn't know which direction the Nike swoosh is supposed to go. The box is just covered in lies, but one of the big ones is the statement that it has a big screen. Well, it doesn't. It's about 2 inches. It's one of the smallest screens I've ever seen in a portable device. And the build quality on this thing is incredibly awful. Everything about it feels cheap and plasticky, but I think some of the worst parts are the buttons. You see, the buttons actually have flex. Now what that is when you push one button down, the other buttons also move. That's just a sign of poor manufacturing. And just like in the past with other systems we've looked at, this one also makes use of individualized directional pad buttons, which I really dislike. Also, while it does kinda look like a PSP, it doesn't have the same features you would find in a PSP. For one, the top left and right shoulder buttons are just solid plastic, they don't actually move. And it doesn't have a UMD drive or anything like that, instead it uses cartridges like we already mentioned. So it's a very low down, cheap version of a PSP. But it does have one thing that the second version of PSPs did have, and that is video out. But we'll be talking about that just a little bit later. For now, we need to talk about something that's far more important: what's bundled with the system. Now, Soulja Boy's listing literally states this in the description. It's got a game card that has, and I'm not making this up, 888,888 games on a single game card. That number is basically impossible. While yes, you could probably take every single game ever made and round it up to some number probably close to that, maybe, you wouldn't be able to get all of those games to fit on a single cartridge, and definitely not having it run by a knockoff PSP. But we got very, very lucky, because the system I went out and bought has 900,000 games in one on a single cartridge, even more than the one that Soulja Boy's selling. There are more video games on this one cartridge than every video game I have ever played in my entire life. That is incredible, and one heck of a good value, but we have to take a look at the back of the box and follow its instructions clearly, because it says right here that we need to read through the instruction manual before setup or use of your system. So, let's do that first. The front page of this manual has a picture of Super Mario with his fighting stance from Super Smash Bros. And the very first message on the manual that you're met with is this: thank you. Thanks for purchasing Playing Vision Portable. Playing Vision Portable product designed for many hours of game playing fun. This product is small and portable, so you can take it anywhere. Please read the following contents prior to connecting and playing to ensure proper use and care. Okay, so there's some spelling and grammar mistakes there, but that's not that big of a deal, you know what they're trying to say. But things get weirder when we go to the care and maintenance section. Now, rules 1 through 7 make sense, like do not disassemble or try to repair Playing Vision Portable or any of its components, but it's when you get to rule number 16, which just jumps straight up from 7, that you get the weirdest message I've ever seen in one of these manuals. Keeps the kids away from cable or connecting wire, or it may circle around their neck and cause the accident once the kids overexert the wires and make the unit drop down to floor? This warning means one of two things. One, the wires that are bundled with this console might choke your kids, which is bad, or two, while they're being choked, they might damage the system by dropping it. But if that second thing happened to you, congratulations, you've damaged and broke the system and likely don't have to play it. But I do, so let's get into this thing. When you plug in the cartridge and turn on the system, you're greeted to this screen right here, 900,001, with a list of all the games that you can select. So as you can probably imagine, I was pretty excited. I was going through every single game on the list to see if I could find something I'd never played before. But then I got to number 38 on the list, and number 38 is Samurai Showdown, which happens to be the first game on this list as well. And that's when I discovered something altogether depressing. There's only 37 games on this collection, and it duplicates again and again to get to 900,000. That means that this cartridge only has 37 games, making that big number a complete and total scam. Now that's pretty annoying, but you know what's more annoying? The fact that if you were to actually buy one of these systems from anyone, you never quite know what you're gonna get. That's because when these companies are producing these things, they're not doing it officially. They're making a whole bunch of these with a whole bunch of random games on them. And I know that because when we bought our fake PSP, it didn't come with one cartridge, it came with two. And that isn't even listed on the box. And this cartridge has 999,666 games. Probably not, but let's see what's on it. Well, this menu certainly looks familiar, but it is a little bit different. It clearly states at the top that it has more games, but does it? Well, if we take a closer look, it does. 2. it's got 2 more games this time. Instead of 37, it's got 39. I guess to make it look impressive, they just decided to duplicate it a lot more times than in the last cartridge. But why would they stop at that specific number? Wouldn't it have been a little bit more exciting to have 1,000,000 games on the system or something like that? Regardless though, no matter what game you play on either of the 2 cartridges, you're gonna find that the games just don't really run all that well. For example, this is how Sonic the Hedgehog is supposed to look and sound. But on this system, it runs like this. You hear that? The music is slower, but it's not only the music, you're also getting very slow gameplay. This is caused by poor Sega Genesis or poor Mega Drive emulation, and regardless of which game you play, they're all gonna have the same problem. But I know what you're thinking. Hey, what if you just stopped playing the Sega Genesis games and tried something else? Well, despite that really big number, you're not gonna find any game on here from any other manufacturer. You're only gonna find Sega Genesis or Sega Mega Drive games. Isn't that great? And let's just say you are okay with that, like I would have been. Well, because none of the games run properly, it just really irritates you every single time you're forced to play anything on here like I was. We've now looked at 2 of these cartridges. Each one says they have more games than they actually do, and they're loaded with pirated software that they clearly didn't get the rights to. But it gets so much worse, because you see, unlike that PlayStation Vita or that DVD portable system, there are ways to sell those consoles without games built into them. Which would be fine, you could do that. But with this system, it doesn't actually have any multimedia functionality whatsoever. That means if you were to buy one of these, the only thing it can do is play games. Games specifically that were pirated and put on these really weird cartridges. At least, that's what you might assume. You could sell one of these things and not actually have the software bundled in, forcing you, the consumer, to go out and buy one of these pirated carts. But if you were to put in any of these cartridges, turn on the system, and then take out the cartridge while you're playing it, you'll notice something. The game doesn't stop. In fact, you can select any game from the menu because all the games are actually inside the console. You know what this means? Those cartridges have nothing on them. All they are bypass carts that tell the internal software inside the system what library to access. And that also means that if we take all the cartridges out of the console and power it on, that's right, there are a whole list of games on here we haven't even looked at yet. Whew, okay, let's take a look at these ones now. So, when you turn on the system without any cartridge inside, you'll see this screen that states it has 999,888 games in one. But you know what that number actually is? 80. That's 80 games, but they are 80 games that you won't find in any of the other menus that we've shown off. This is insane. What they've done here is they forced you to walk around with these cartridges that don't actually do anything but bypass your entryway into a new menu screen. See, all they had to do here was just make one menu with all the games together, and then you would have actually had a pretty neat system, maybe, but instead they forced you to take around these empty cartridges. So, we've got bad hardware, we've got pirated games, and they're not being emulated very well. How much worse can it get? Well, this system also happens to have a bunch of games I've never heard of. You're gonna be in for some fun, so strap yourselves in, 'cause it's gonna get real weird. This game is called Bubbles Master. Now you've probably seen it before called Zuma Ball or Zuma Bubbles or even some other weird name. It doesn't really matter. It's the exact same game. But the only difference is that typically when you were to play this game originally, you'd play it with a mouse or maybe some kind of touchscreen. That way you could actually point where every ball was supposed to go once you shot it out from the center. But because this doesn't have a touchscreen, you have to use a really terrible floating cursor that you control with a D-pad. And you want to know why that's bad? Because if you were just controlling that frog in the center by pushing left and right and rotating it around and shooting bubbles that way, it wouldn't be that bad of a game. But that cursor thing is so slow that it's really difficult to use it in time. And if, by some miracle, you are still playing this game at this point, the bubble that's in the frog's mouth is randomized. And if you need to change it, there's a button, but that button is also randomized. So you never know what you're gonna get, so it's completely possible to play this game and never get the color you need to complete a stage. They took a completely functional game and broke it to pieces and put it on here. But it's not the only game they did that to, because here is Angry Birds. Originally, this game was released for touchscreen devices, and that's the way it should be played. But on here, we got one of those wonderful cursors again, but it gets worse. Remember, all of these are running off of a bad Sega Genesis emulator, and these are all Sega Genesis games. And on the original hardware of a cell phone, it could probably do a lot of cool things, but on here, there are minimal, if not broken, item physics. Do you know what that does to a game like Angry Birds? Well, it does this. All the blocks, all the items, everything in this stage is supposed to fall over, and that's what makes this game work as well as it does. But when you're playing it in this version, none of that applies. So you can spend an entire fleet of birds knocking down every individual block just for the hope that you might hit one of those pigs. And by the way, you have to hit those pigs directly. If you get underneath them and knock away some of those blocks, it doesn't matter if they fall, it won't hurt them. And also, just in case you are wondering, the wood and the glass have the exact same properties. And that's if you're lucky to destroy the glass the first time, which you probably won't be able to. So it was at this point that I needed a break. I decided to turn on Sonic & Knuckles, which is a game I'm very familiar with. Sonic & Knuckles, for those of you that don't know, was a cartridge that had a special feature. On the top, you could put in another cartridge like Sonic the Hedgehog 2 or 3 and get modified or enhanced versions of those games. Now, what's important to know is that besides those two games, no other game works with this lock-on mechanic. And what do you think they did, huh? That's right, they went and got a ROM of somebody putting the wrong cartridge on the top there. So you are met with this screen. This means that there's no way to play Sonic & Knuckles. It's just a useless ROM file. Unless, however, you want to bypass this screen and access the bonus stage, where you'll quickly discover that the bonus stage runs really slow because this emulator, once again, is broken. Alright, let's get back to the weirder games. Now this is called Woody Woodpecker's Frustrated Vacations, and you may never have heard of this game before because it's entirely in Portuguese. This game was originally released in the mid-90s in Brazil by a company called Tectoy. What's interesting about Tectoy is that they're kind of a legitimate reseller of Sega stuff, but it's really strange, and to be fair, this game didn't get released anywhere else. And maybe there's a very good reason for that. The entire game looks like it was made really fast on a very small budget. Look at the tires on this car here. They're not even the same color from one set to the other. But it's not just that. It's the whole visual look. It kind of looks like it was made on MS Paint super fast. Just look at the hills in the background. They just look like big clumps of brown. But it's not just problems with visual details, you also have problems with the gameplay. Everything feels incredibly floaty and imprecise. Woody Woodpecker's pecking attack isn't just attacking what's forward, but you can attack in multiple directions. This would normally be fine, but the attack is so imprecise that you simply don't know if it's gonna land or not. I couldn't tell you how many times playing this level that I thought I was actually hurting an enemy, but then I wasn't. Like these squirrels in these trees that are hucking acorns at you. You gotta get rid of them, but it's incredibly hard because your attacks never seem to land properly. This issue really boiled over by the time I hit the first boss. I spent forever trying to figure out how to defeat this boss, and here's what you have to do. Now, if you walk up to the bear and attack him with your little pecking attack, it won't matter. No matter how much you peck him, it's not gonna hurt him. What you're supposed to do is go to the trees to the left and right of the screen where there's squirrels inside. You don't need to worry about harming the squirrels because what you're supposed to do is peck the tree. Once you've pecked the tree, the squirrel will throw an acorn at the bear, if it actually hits the bear. And if it does, what you're supposed to do is go up to the bear and peck him, at least once. If you've done that, you remove some of his health, but you have to repeat that process again and again until the bear is done. Why was this boss battle designed this way? I'm really confused about this. The beginning of the stage taught you that if you attacked the squirrels, they would go away. So in the boss battle, now they do the exact opposite. If you attack them, they help you out. And what's up with the bear? Why do I have to attack it with acorns first before I can peck it? Does it have a nut allergy or something like that? Well, wait a minute. Look at that tail. Is that actually a dog? I don't even care anymore. But who knows? Maybe this game is actually really good. Remember, this system has a broken emulator on it that's not running any of the games properly. For all I know, this is the greatest Woody Woodpecker game ever made. But could it get worse than that? Well, I think so. Now remember, every game on this system is originally on the Sega Genesis or running through a Sega Genesis emulator. So what you're about to see is actually a Sega Genesis game. This is called Super Mario World, a game featuring Nintendo's two iconic plumbers, Mario and Luigi, but it's definitely not being made by Nintendo. Oh, and don't think for a moment that this will actually look like Super Mario World, because it won't. In fact, it seems to be kind of a lazy remake of the original Super Mario Bros. On the NES. Now, while the graphics do seem good, there's things about it that are just wrong. For instance, Mario no longer collects coins, now he collects diamonds. Mario no longer picks up mushrooms or power-ups because now he has a built-in supersonic fireball move, which you can only use 3 or 4 times until you can find more ammo for it. And shockingly, the one thing Mario doesn't seem to be able to do is jump on enemies. Why? I don't know, but he can't. So how does Mario attack enemies if you only have a limited number of fireballs and you can't jump on them? Well, of course, you pick up boxes and throw them at your enemies. What? But attacking isn't the only thing you can do with these boxes, because Mario can hide in them just like Solid Snake. What's he hiding from? What's the point of that mechanic? Well, I don't know. I played the game pretty long and couldn't find any use for it whatsoever. Even in the boss battles, you have to take up those blocks and throw them at your enemies. It is the weirdest mechanic, because all they needed to do was allow you to jump on things. But by this point, I started noticing other issues with the game, like the fact that Bowser just keeps flashing all over the place because there seems to be some glitch in his programming. Throughout the levels, you may have seen some brickwork. You know, the kind of stuff that Mario can jump into and break. Well, not in this game. Instead, what you'll get is a recreation of the original Super Mario Bros. Levels that were designed with the idea that you could break bricks. So what happens is, because you still need to get through those areas, you just kind of casually float through the bricks. And it makes you feel like you're kind of floating or swimming or something, so you can just do this. Some bricks are solid and others are not. It's a mystery when you play because you never know which one it's gonna be. There are just so many issues and problems with this game that I had a hard time believing that this was a fan recreation. I mean, if it was and they made it from scratch, it would have been done a little bit better, right? And about the time that Mario picked up a health pack in this game, which is something he can do, by the way, I thought, well, okay, this has to be a hack of a game I simply have never heard of. So I did a little research, and you're not gonna believe what I found out. Super Mario World on the Sega Genesis is a hack of a game called Squirrel King. Squirrel King is a game I would have never played before because it's an unlicensed game that was released sometime in the mid-90s by a company in Taiwan. The game itself is a ripoff of Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. So of course he's throwing blocks around. That's exactly what you would do in that game. And to further prove the theory that this is actually Squirrel King, I kept playing the game. And eventually, when they run out of Super Mario World levels, you get into the Squirrel King levels, which are just really badly made as well. You can even see where they stole the boss battle for Bowser in the Super Mario World game by just hacking this one here. But even the Squirrel King game is stealing a whole bunch of assets from other games or blatantly ripping them off. For instance, listen to this music right here. What does this sound like? And just to add one more problem, while I was playing this game, the knockoff PSP's video out feature started to fail. And now I can't properly capture video game footage from the console anymore. It's as if it knew it just had to give up and stop working. What a terrible, terrible system. This is without a doubt one of the worst portable systems I have ever looked at, and the idea that it is trying to be close to a PSP is insulting to everyone in the entire world that has ever been a fan of that original platform. Well, this easily is one of the worst consoles I've ever taken a look at, and it also happens to be one of the worst knockoff PSPs I've ever seen. As funny as that is, I've seen quite a few of those too. Now look, what really confuses me out of everything is why Soulja Boy would want to sell one of these things. It doesn't make any sense. If you're gonna buy these, whatever he's charging you, whatever the price is, it's way too much. He should be giving these away for free or possibly throwing them out. I don't know, you pick. But here's something I do know. What scares me the most about this system is that I only had 2 cartridges and there was a bunch of built-in games onto it. Out there somewhere, there's probably more cartridges that have more games that unlock further features of this system. Do I find them, or do I not? I guess we'll have to wait and see.